Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, yet another shift in policy in Israel's coronavirus response. This time, officials moving towards a herd immunity model. Meantime, renewed efforts to prevent the bird flu from spreading its wings any further. At least 5,000 wild cranes and over 500,000 hens already killed. And finally, a scandal in Knesset. Cabinet officials blasting Chief Rabbi Lau for, quote, blackmailing the government. A terror attack recorded along the Gaza border Wednesday, leaving an Israeli civilian contractor lightly wounded. He was shot from beyond the wall while working on the perimeter fence, and he was aided by medics at the scene before being evacuated to hospital in Ashkelon for further treatment. And no individual or group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. The IDF, however, clearing Israelis until further notice from fields and farms near the border and retaliating against several Hamas terror group outposts with artillery fire. Gaza health officials under Hamas saying 3 Palestinian farmers were wounded. Meantime, while it's unclear if Hamas was involved, the shooting coming as terror groups in the Strip holding a massive military drill, and a day after PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas met with Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz at Gantz's home in Rosh Ha'ain. Hamas having heavily criticized the meeting as, quote, indecent and unacceptable. Moving on, with another 3,000 daily recorded cases of coronavirus and at least 2,000 Israelis hospitalized with the flu, government ministers urging the public to get vaccinated for both as soon as possible. Fears of a so-called twin-demic quickly rising. Regardless of the rapidly spreading infections and the public's response, however, the cabinet's still trying to prevent a scenario in which hundreds of thousands of Israelis are stuck in quarantine simultaneously. So 2 major policy shifts announced, and the first being to the quarantine guidelines. As of Thursday, vaccinated or recovered Israelis in isolation due to exposure to infected persons can exit quarantine with just a negative antigen test and at government expense. But a home test does not count, and if the test is positive, a PCR test will then be required as a follow-up. Additionally, the unvaccinated must still self-isolate for 2 weeks, with the possibility of shortening the period only on day 7 and with a negative PCR test. Then finally, the second policy change coming as a shift in focus towards a mass infection and herd immunity model. The policy would likely include lifting restrictions on low-risk demographics in an outline mirroring Sweden's actions during the start of the pandemic, which at the time was largely panned as a failure. But given the lack of immediate rises in serious illness despite Omicron's increased infectivity, Israeli officials say that this time the move may work. Now, in other news, the so-called twin-demic of COVID and the flu in Israel at risk of becoming an unholy trifecta. This as H5N1, or the bird flu, picking up speed in the north as well. The following images may be hard to watch.
אנחנו כאן באגמון החולה ושמורת החולה בעיצומה של התפרצות חריפה מאוד של שפעת עופות שפוגעת כאן בעגורים, למעשה הפגיעה החמורה ביותר בחיות הבר אי פעם.
H5N1, aka the avian or bird flu, back with a vengeance in Israel. The outbreak discovered earlier this week in a northern moshav among the wild migrating crane and farmed poultry populations. And already at least 5,000 cranes have fallen dead from the disease, along with an estimated 700,000 hens who were either also killed by the virus or culled to prevent its spread.
יש כאן אלפי עגורים שכבר מתו ועדיין לא ידועה ההתפשטות הנוספת בחיות הבר האחרות, במקורות המים. זו מחלה שגם מדבקת ופוגעת בבני אדם.
Top epidemiologists then also sounding the alarms for Israelis who are already battling both the seasonal flu and a 5th wave of coronavirus. Chair of Israel's National Council for Community Health, Professor Amnon Lahad, saying that, quote, the widespread nature of the avian flu is very concerning, particularly given that it's infecting chickens and not just wild birds. It's made the move from wildlife to stock animals, and we're hoping that it won't take the next step to humans, end quote. And this after Israeli media already reporting how the virus may have spread further by children who earlier visited the reserves and may have touched a stricken crane.